So we have some significant developments coming out of Israel. In particular, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is officially requesting a pardon. As you guys probably know, he has been mired in corruption allegations and a corruption trial for years that he, has been pushing off again and again into the future by, bombing various places and starting various wars. Let's put this up on the screen. This is from the AP. Netanyahu requests a pardon to end his ongoing corruption trial in Israel. I'll read you a little bit of this. On Sunday, he asked the country's president to grant him a pardon from corruption charges, seeking to end a long-running trial that has bitterly divided the nation. Netanyahu has been at war against Israel's legal system over the charges, said the request would help unify the country at a time of momentous change in the region, but it immediately triggered denunciations from opponents who said a pardon would weaken democratic institutions and send a dangerous message that he is above the rule of law. Netanyahu had submitted a request for a pardon to the legal department of the office of the president. The prime minister's office said in a statement, the president's office called it an extraordinary request, carrying with it significant implications. Netanyahu is the only sitting prime minister in Israeli history to stand trial after being charged with fraud, breach of trust, and accepting bribes in 3 separate cases, accusing him of exchanging favors with wealthy political supporters. He has not been convicted of anything. Netanyahu rejects the allegations, has described the case as what? A witch hunt orchestrated by the media, police, and judiciary. And we can put next one up on the screen. So one of his rivals supports pardoning Netanyahu if it's conditioned on his leaving politics, which I do not think that Netanyahu would agree to. For those who have followed this closely, prior to October 7th, Netanyahu was extremely unpopular. The country was riven with mass protests demanding his ouster, and people, who were outraged over this corruption and also the changes that he tried to make to basically co-opt the judiciary in order to undercut the corruption charges against him. And our own president, of course, has gotten involved here as well. It can put F3 up on the screen. So Trump called for Bibi to be pardoned when he gave that, what was basically looked like a victory speech at the Knesset after the Gaza deal was struck. But he had also put out this Truth Social saying it's terrible what they're doing in Israel to Bibi Netanyahu. He is a war hero and a prime minister who did a fabulous job working with the U.S. to bring great success in getting rid of the dangerous nuclear threat in Iran. Importantly, he is right now in the process of negotiating a deal with Hamas. This was back from a while ago, which will include getting the hostages back. How is it possible that the prime minister of Israel can be forced to sit in a courtroom all day long over nothing? And then he says cigars, Bugs Bunny doll, etc. It is a political witch hunt, very similar to the witch hunt I was forced to endure. This travesty of justice will interfere with both Iran and Hamas negotiations. In other words, it is insanity doing what the out-of-control prosecutors are doing to Bibi Netanyahu. The U.S. of A. spends billions of dollars a year, far more than any other nation, protecting and supporting Israel. Well, that part at least is true. We're not going to stand for this. We just had a great victory with Bibi Netanyahu at the helm, and this greatly tarnishes our victory. Let Bibi go. He's got a big job to do. So, pretty extraordinary, I guess. For one of the things they're saying is typically you go through the trial and find out whether or not the person is found guilty before you grant the pardon. So that is one part of this that would be extraordinary. But, Netanyahu has pushed this thing off, pushed a reckoning over the security failures, too, of October 7th off and off and off into the future, and really has consolidated a lot of political power, control, and popularity within Israel over his conduct of this genocide.
Yes, I think, but I think that the irony of it is that he still has to admit guilt if he wants his pardon within the Israeli legal system. And so, I don't know. I mean, it's one of those where the mere pardon, one of the things that is fascinating about Trump is that the United States, when it intervenes in other countries, usually does so under much more of the veneer of respectability. But as we talked about earlier with Honduras, he's straight up like, I want this government to win, and so I'm going to pardon this guy, and you guys should vote for it. Or with Milei, he's like, your aid is contingent on who you elect. I mean, it's as open and shut as there's no Maidan conspiracy or anything.
It's just brazen in the open.
Right, it's just out in the open. And so I guess what this admits, though, is that, Israel is a client. Like, one of the things that Bibi often does is he'll be like, well, we're an independent nation, right? But that's not what this is about. Trump straight up was like, you guys need to pardon him. His contingent relationship is on this leader and making sure that he can continue to serve. Also, how much bullshit did we hear about how throughout the war is we'll talk about October 7th after the war. Now, obviously, the war is still continuing because there's ceasefire violations happening from the Israelis all the time. But in Israel, what happened to that? Does anybody want to, it's obvious that his entire strategy, it worked. 2 years, led Israel through the war, okay? And now he's going to get his pardon. I don't know if he'll win re-election or not, but they're currently feuding with Ehud Barak over whether Epstein was a Mossad asset and intervening in their election.
Over who he was working on behalf.
Over which Israeli government he was working on behalf. Okay. Yeah, it's so crazy, this entire thing. So the pardon, I mean, again, the funny part about it all for the whole Qatar thing is it all involves Qatar. And like in terms, not just in his own case, but I'm saying the corruption within the Likud party, so much of it revolves around Qatari money and bribery. And yet, of course, that's skated over by the Zionist people here in the U.S. So I don't know. You learn a lot from it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
At the same time, we also wanted to highlight this horrifying video that is forcing at least some sort of a response from Israel. I mean, it's seldom that their war crimes actually rise to the level of them even pretending they're... This one rose to the level of we're going to pretend to do an investigation. That's what this one rose to. This video is very disturbing. Before I play it, just a warning, this is deeply disturbing. I'll put this up on the screen. This was in the West Bank. You can see these two suspects who are exiting what appears to be a warehouse, and they lift up their shirts to show that they are unarmed and they don't have any explosives. Then they are instructed to go back into the warehouse, and they are executed. And then the this heavy machinery sort of drops this door on top of them. But you have two individuals, hands up, unarmed. And whoever they were, Palestinian Islamic Jihad is claiming them as their own. Whoever they were, you are not supposed to execute people who are surrendering and who are unarmed. And yet that's exactly what happened in this video. And again, this happened in the West Bank. But, so there are some in, recrimination, some like, oh, we'll look into it, we'll investigate what happened here. But not everyone is even going along with that. You've got Ben-Gvir, who took it upon himself, we can put this next piece up on the screen, to promote the officer in particular who sort of took charge of the scene and had his soldiers shoot dead these surrendered Palestinians. So the people who committed these brazen crimes on camera, not only are they not being punished, but Ben-Gvir has promoted this officer. And, job well done. Great work on this. This is exactly what you should be doing. So I want people to understand, like every time some Zionist or liberal Zionist, whoever, tries to tell you like, oh, Ben-Gvir he's a fringe character, he doesn't represent all of Israel, blah, blah, blah. This guy has real power. He is a part of this administration. He has real and significant power, and he is able to take actions such as this. There was another video, I decided not to keep it in the show because it included like young children in it, of Smotrich, who is another complete and total psycho, going into what appears to be a classroom, and these young girls going like he's, like he's the Beatles in the 60s, like going wild for him. This society has it's just captured by this, not everyone, but captured by this genocidal mania. You can see it in the polls. You can see it in the response to actions like this. You can see it in the way that they like lionize and revere Smotrich. And this is something we talked about towards the beginning, Saagar, when everyone's like, why are these IDF soldiers filming their atrocities? It's because they were celebrated and treated like heroes oftentimes for recording the cruelty, the barbarism, the war crimes that they were committing against Palestinians. So there was a domestic reward for them from those videos.
Yeah, and it shows up in policy. And I think that's one of the parts where, in the US, everyone just whitewash. Like that video, you'll see it here. You're not going to see it most places in the mainstream media or others, even with the West Bank, in the way that we approach like our ambassador. It's just amazing to me the shit they get away. I'm still not over Jonathan Pollard. Are you?
No.
I'm still so, I'm so angry about it.
The hypocrisy, they tell us, they share our Western values.
That's what I'm saying.
They're a beacon of democracy, and that's why we should support them endlessly. And then you see a video like this and you're like, well, tell me about that. and the officer involved gets a promotion. How is this anything approximating the values that we're supposed to stand for?
Yeah, exactly. Same with the West Bank. And that's why, here's the reason, is because if you take this in, then when they start talking about Qatar or Saudi, they're like, oh, because Saudis, they chop people's heads off. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty bad. It's kind of like shooting people who are unarmed or murdering innocent women and children. That's all bad, right? But the point is that then we start to view everybody on the same terms. That's a nightmare for them. They need their special exception, and they just have to maintain this insane image, here in the U.S. A lot of this, again, everything they accuse, a lot of the things that they accuse others, and specifically Islamic nations, they do the same shit, like in their own society. And so, yeah, you guys, you're just the same. If anything, I think it's a nightmare, actually, for their relations with the U.S. And, look, us neutral observers and others, you can see that. Like, you actually can. And this is genuinely dispassionate, just to look at it and be like, okay, this is apparently how this nation, its people want to conduct themselves. All right, fine, but, you're not. That doesn't mean you get a blank check from me or the full force of my empire to backstop your insane dreams of greater Israel. But that's what they need to maintain.
Yeah.
And that's why they keep up their efforts here in the West.
I did want to share one piece of significant good news, which is that a Palestinian American teenager, 16-year-old, who was being held in Israeli detention for 9 months, who was in the West Bank visiting from Florida, visiting some relatives. The Israelis claimed that he had thrown rocks, which he had denied, and they held him in this prison system as known for torture and abuse. Again, an American citizen, and he was finally released. And I want to shout out Jasper Nathaniel, and I want to shout out his mom, who've been relentless in calling attention to this case and demanding that American politicians act on his behalf to get him released from this unjust imprisonment. And I also want to shout out Chris Van Hollen, Senator of Maryland. I mean, this guy's from Florida. This isn't even one of his constituents, but he was apparently very aggressive, pushing for Mohammed Ibrahim's release here. He was 15. By the way, when they originally detained him. He was taken to a hospital afterwards. He was pale, underweight, suffering from various conditions that he, contracted in captivity, but he's back with his family. And so that's at least one small piece of good news that this particular American hostage, which was being held by the Israelis, a child, has been freed and returned to his family where he belongs.
Yep, that's at the very least, it's good. But yeah, I mean, it's not like there's any outrage or campaign, barely any coverage even of something like this.
Yeah.
It's sick. I don't know what's going on with this relationship. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. We appreciate it. We're going to get to our AMA now, and so we'll see you all tomorrow.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.